Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to my poorly lit dining room because we have officially entered the world is dark by 6 p.m. days. And I really wanted to talk about the books that I am nominating for the Indie Ink Awards, my favorite awards for indie books. If you have been around my channel for any amount of time, you know I am an indie book girly. And I've only recently gotten involved with the Indie Ink Awards. This year was my first year judging for them, but I adored my time, loved it so much, made an entire video on why more people should be judges. But if that's a little bit too much for a commitment, you can still participate in the Indie Ink Awards by nominating your favorite indie books. In fact, you kind of have to, because authors can't nominate their own books. So if you have a fave that you think deserves to be in the running, it's got to be you doing it, babe. Let's jump into the rules for nomination real quick. It is only open for the month of November, and like I mentioned before, it cannot be an author doing it. It has to be a reader who has read the book. Yes, you have to have actually read the book and think, yes, this book deserves this award, or at least deserves to be in the running for it. It does need to be indie published, meaning either self-published or published by a press that is not owned by one of the big four, big five, however many there are now. So something like Bindery does count as indie and can be entered for the awards. Now, this also has to be a book that has not made it to finalist status in the Indie Ink Awards before, meaning it did not actually make it into the hands of a judge before. If it was just entered or reached nominee status but did not go through voting to reach the judges, you can enter it again. And thankfully, if that has already happened, you'll know by its Indie Story Geek page. Which leads me to the next rule. All of the books have to be entered on Indie Story Geek. This isn't like any big thing. It's just that's the site they use for all of the judges' portals and just how the management of the entire award system works. It's super quick to get a book added to the database. You do not have to be the author to get it added. I myself have added almost all of the books I nominated, which is a lot, and they're usually pretty quick to be approved. And low-key, I did feel like I was like being a feral goblin, adding all of these extras to the database, but I did talk with one of the mods, and they actually do love seeing a ton of people adding indie books because they do want this to be an indie book database that people can look through to find new indie book picks. So even if the author that you're nominating doesn't make it through, they'll at least have their book in front of newer eyes. Books must be YA to adult in age range, minimum of novella length, 70 pages or about 17 to 18,000 words, and it cannot be made with any kind of AI, including on the cover. I really like that rule. The indie status is based on the book, not the author, so a hybrid author can still be nominated as long as you are nominating one of their indie published books. And my favorite part about all of this is the actual timeline that we're dealing with, because the Indie Ink Awards don't deal with only books published within a calendar year. While the book does have to already be published as of November 1st, 2025, and still be in circulation, still be in print somehow, there's no back date. You can go as far back as you want, as far back many years as you want to find indie books, as long as they are still in circulation. To address the fiber elephant in the room for anyone wondering, this is my Eccentric Wizard housecoat that I wear when it is either cold or I am not feeling great, which it's been a twofer the last couple days. So I am here in all of my Eccentric Wizard glory, wearing the best thing I have ever crocheted, quite frankly. I realized I never made it clear. I will not actually be judging any of these books if they do make it through to the judges, purely because you have to nominate books you've read, but you can't judge books you've already read. So it's a de facto, you don't judge books you've nominated. So these are literally just for other people to judge. I would just like them to be in the running. All right, let's jump into what I actually nominated. So here I am on the Indie Ink Awards site, and they will have all the rules listed if you forget from what I've said here, but we will scroll down to see the nominations. There are over 4,000 so far. That is not books, that is nominations. So several of those probably count for one book each, but I don't know the exact amount of books that have been nominated so far, but they definitely got a lot to go through when the nomination closes. All right, so for Best Audio Narration, I nominated Rule of Extinction by Jeff Jones. I received an audio book of that for review and genuinely liked how hard the author was willing to go in killing off characters to emphasize the sci-fi dystopianness. And the narrator did a fantastic job. I also did Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. Admittedly, there are certain chapters of that audiobook that like aren't actually the best to listen through because they're literally just reading off binary code of zeros and ones. So I might have skipped a little bit, but it was still a multicast narration, really well done. So I do still think it has a shot in the running. I also put Of Monsters and Mainframes up for best book cover and cover artist. I don't really notice covers a lot. It's not usually why I pick books, but this one did just jump out at me when I first saw it in the indie bookstore, the physical copy. And so I was like, well, if it jumped out at me, we might as well give it a shot in that category. For Best Friendship, I nominated Burn Up in Victory by Jennifer R. Donahue. This is a fantasy Renaissance era type world in which young adults are arranged into dueling circles in which they all must band together to enter tournaments together, and your status in the tournaments kind of decides your social status, and so it is definitely about a group of friends with their own dramas and such. Best Light Read, I'm honestly surprised I had anything for this one, just because I don't read a lot of light books, but I did have A Man for Mrs. Claus by Rebecca Weatherspoon and Two Like the Lightning by Travis Bedowen, which honestly, I am shocked that Travis Bedowen has not gotten an Indie Ink Award yet, so I had to change that. And of course, Rebecca Weatherspoon, I believe, is hybrid published, but A Man for Mrs. Claus is self-published by her, I believe, and I loved what that thing did with Christmas, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. I don't have anything for Best Mentor Character. And I was really bummed when I realized that because I love a good mentor character, especially when they're grumpy. Good grumpy mentor character that like learns to get re-energized by the protagonist. It's my shit. And I'm so annoyed I don't have anything for that. But it's fine. Best Morally Grey Character, The Glass God by Forrest Bezot is that Bezot? Regardless, it's a cyberpunk about a wannabe crime lord that is delusional about his own abilities to be a crime lord, and I really appreciated how self-aware the author was that the protagonist is kind of an idiot in how he does crime. But there's also another side character that could be considered a morally gray character. And then, of course, in Of Monsters and Mainframes, there is a side mummy-esque character that is distinctly morally gray. Best setting. This one was one of my favorites to use because I love me a good setting book. The War Machine by Amy Kaza had a very vivid tech, like light-colored dystopian cyberpunk. I don't know how to explain it, which is why I had to put it for best setting. I need other people to read it, and maybe they can explain the setting better than me. 13 County Road 666 by C.L. McCollum is a gay trailer park. And just the concept of gay trailer park of supernaturals, I'm like, well, yes, that setting kicks ass. Like, Ensnared by Tiffany Roberts is a very big name in indie books, and I would be surprised if there's not judges who are a little bit put off by Spider-Man monster romance, but the actual alien planet it takes place on, the tangle and the jungle, and oh, it's so vivid. I love it. The Misery House by David Kummer is actually just small town, but it is one of those, the small town is the setting, and it's fairly deeply entrenched in small town ideals. So I picked that one as well. Best use of tropes, A Man for Mrs. Claus did some great things with holiday lore, really turned a lot of holiday concepts on their head, and also drag show at the North Pole. Hello. Magica Riot does great use with the magical girl tropes, especially when it comes to transness. Luxuria by Colette Rhodes has the best use of the miscommunication trope I have ever seen. Okay, I usually hate that trope. I love it in that book, and for that reason alone, it got nominated for that. Again, we have The Misery House because it uses some great horror tropes in fun ways. And Of Monsters and Mainframes uses great space opera and classic horror tropes dealing with things like werewolves, Dracula, and Cthulhu. And so I loved all those references. Nothing for Prettiest Book Interior. As I've realized, I don't do a lot with book interiors, and I don't notice them when they're there. So side character MVP, I don't even know what side character I was referring to when I nominated 13 County Road 666, because this is basically an ensemble cast with just one protagonist. Like, there's so many people. I do think the hick werewolf with the terrible fashion taste that wears like neon trucker hats is probably my pick for side character. This book made me hungry thirsty. Haven't had that for an indie book. The only couple times that has happened, they were trad published. Wittiest character. This one I never thought of when I was thinking about what books to nominate for. Like, I don't know what I would consider a witty character. Now, writing the future we need. These are the identity reps. Asexual or aromantic representation. I'm so excited for this one. The Language of Roses by Heather Rose Jones is an aromantic Beauty and the Beast retelling, aka a Beauty and the Beast retelling where there is not a romance between the Belle and Beast inserts. And I loved it. It was the Beauty and the Beast retelling I've been waiting for. And eventually you will see this again during the taste test for that video, but loved it, had to nominate it. I don't have anything by Asian representation by an Asian author. I do have a couple for bisexual or biromantic representation because gotta rep my people. Burn Up in Victory is just filled with chaos bisexuals. And the Goshawk and the One-Eyed Dragon, which is a historical romance by Leela Mina taking place in feudal Japan. Both characters are bisexual, and it does come out in the narration. I love that series. This is technically a prequel to the main series, but you can start there. Black representation by a Black author. Obviously, Rebecca Weatherspoon there. Disability representation by a disabled author. Don't have any for this, but I am going to force myself to read almost solely for this award when I am judging. So I figured I didn't need to worry a lot about nominating for this one specifically because I can't judge for any of the books I nominate. And I want to read almost all of my nominee books to be from this one. So it wasn't a big deal for me to nominate. Gay or lesbian representation, Two Like the Lightning by Travis Badone, which is a contemporary gay romance, and Ambrosia by Linnea Lenient, which is all about sapphic pop stars going feral in an anti-capitalist way. Loved that book. I unfortunately do not have any Indigenous or Latin representation, but I do know that these Indigenous especially tends to be one they don't get a lot of nominations for. So if you do know of any indie like Indigenous authors, definitely get them nominated because I could always use more. Writing the future we need, LGBT representation. These are more just like generic, widespread. If you don't know the specific sexuality, but you know not straight, this is a good award for it. Or in these cases, a lot of these are ensemble books with more than one type of queer person, which is what I use this one for. So all of these books that we've talked about before have more than one flavor of the rainbow within it. I don't have anything for mental health or neurodivergent, unfortunately, but I do have two for trans or non-binary. These are both trans books, and they both have one of my favorite, very niche trans book tropes. Is it a trope if it's that niche? I don't know, but it's where the egg cracks on page through magical means. So both of the protagonists in these books have to or end up changed through magic and discover something about themselves, or at least are finally, accepting the thing about themselves. I loved that. And I did love the couple of trans books I got to read, even though I couldn't judge for that award specifically because you do need to be in the community for the awards you judge for. But more or less, this is what I am at. I would not put it past me to suddenly decide to add some new ones, but for right now, I think I'm chill. That is it. Those are the books I am nominating, or rather have nominated, for the Indie Ink Awards. If you think you have some books that should be nominated for these awards, please feel free to hit up the website and get that process going. The link will be down in the description below. Like I mentioned in my last video, they could always use more judges, so if you want to actually be reading some of these books, you can sign up for that and hit the ground running in February. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.